And High Vibe Channeling welcomes again Tom Leichardt for another quality session with his higher collective self, Illy, for some more great details and answers, and I would imagine a message for us. And
Uh,
happy birthday to Serge Granbois, since today is his birthday.
That's what happens when I don't go to Facebook. I don't get to see these
Yeah.
things.
well, it's probably a good thing you don't go there.
Way to preserve that vibration, John.
Don't post this on Facebook.
My Facebook is filled with nothing but great stuff, man. I tell you,
That's it.
seriously. Just
Yeah.
cool people posting cool stuff. It's great.
Yeah, it is. It does get curated to reflect your vibration for sure. Nevertheless, it is what it is.
Yep.
Hi, we got Lewis here in the house.
Hey, how you doing, Tom?
Yeah, so honestly, I have no idea what tonight's session is going to be about, but that's usually the case. Um, so we'll see. So okay, let me make sure I check. And is someone recording this Zoom session in grid
Yeah.
and regular
I
format?
don't I don't know if it is grid and regular. Because I just have the basic pro account, so I don't know that it gives me all of that, Tom.
It should. You might
But
have to check it
it
sometime.
didn't on the last one. That's all I
Oh,
can say.
oh no, I should have checked with you sooner.
Oh,
Well, I
well,
mean,
Grid helps with the editing later.
yeah.
But anyways, it is what it
Well, I
is.
mean, as far as I know, it's doing the grid, but
Oh, okay.
and not the other. But Luis, did you have something to add on that, or
no, if you want both, you have to set it up ahead of the game. And you got to go to the web Zoom instead of your app to do that.
well, yeah, I do because I don't use anything on my mobile. It's all on my PC. But I looked for that today, as a matter of fact, just to be sure, and I did not find anything on it on the recordings.
Yeah, I
So,
don't know if transferring host because I could do that. I could do it from here if I'm set up that way, but right now you got total control, and I don't know that I could record here when you yeah, not sure how that part works.
I don't mind if you want to try it.
I'll give it a try. Give me host and I'll try to record.
You are host.
you have the power.
It seems like it's doing it.
Cool. All right. Well, I'm glad I asked. That makes editing so much easier later.
Hey, we're here for you.
My
We
future self appreciates you.
Hey, and we're all benefiting too, Tom, because we all get to see the benefits of your work. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you all for being here. So let's get into it. All right, testing, testing. That looks good. Good day to you. We welcome you to these realms of light, where the vast majority of who you are also exists. We welcome you to these realms of light from where your physical lives, your physical personalities, and your entire physical worlds also spring. We are most happy to return to our wonderful co-creative circle because it is time for the raising of vibrations and the delivering of new messages. And so our message for today will be, shall we call it hyperdimensional or perhaps transdimensional physics? We will speak a little bit about the manner in which you can visualize yourself moving through a series of many, many realities, which you, from your vantage point, perceive as one reality. Now, some of these metaphors will not be new, but perhaps the way that we express it may. shed some light on it in a new way. The same way you might look at a crystal that you are very familiar with and you turn it in just such a certain way, and the light hits it in a certain way that you see it in a completely new way. Thusly, we will endeavor to unravel, shall we say, or to reveal the structure of existence to you in such a way that it will shine and reveal itself to you in a new way. For you see, the old expression, there is nothing new under the sun, is highly relevant. It is how you perceive that which is already here and now, that is always shifting and changing. It is your perception. Perception is the key. And as physical beings that you perceive yourselves to be, your perception is, shall we say, funneled through a kind of time-space reality matrix that can be looked at as this kind of metaphor. Now, many of you are familiar with the checkerboard, the game of chess. So you know that you, as a game, you move about this board. There are certain rules, certain parameters, such as your physical life has. But we will expand this a little bit because you're not playing on a two-dimensional field. You appear to be playing on a three-dimensional field. And you might even say a four-dimensional field if you include time. However, we will tell you that it is indeed a hyperdimensional field. Thusly, your checkerboard must then expand itself into cuboidal structures. You can consider it as a large cube and within it many small cubes. So instead of the checkerboard you're familiar with, you have many, many cubes. And remember, this is just a metaphor, just something to stretch your physical mind a little bit so that it can interface a little bit more with your higher mind, which is guiding you from the complete cube perspective. Whereas your physical mind is like a dot of consciousness, a very concentrated beam or a concentration of awareness that fits itself into but one cube within this cuboidal structure. Now, as you perceive yourself within the cube, you have many options. You can move forward, you can move backwards, you can move sideways, you can move up, and you can move down. Now, these motions within the cube, each face of the cube will represent the shifting to another reality, another parallel version of you. Now, as this consciousness, you are shifting. Now, to you, it appears as if you are going step by step, square by square. It appears that there is a sense of continuity moving through your physical frame, through your physical life. You are on a path, it appears. Now, within this cuboidal structure, you step into one cube, and in each moment, in each heartbeat, you have before you many, many choices. You have a series of minor choices, and at times you come upon much larger, seemingly to you, choices. You choose the right or the left, you're in a fork in the road. Thusly, each time you move through, you step forward, as it were. You step through one of these faces, and each step represents you shifting to a completely new version of you. It is not the same body, it is a new body, it is a new reality, it is a new earth. So you take one step, and the step is the metaphor for choice. And again, each moment is a choice, conscious or unconscious. Even the thoughts that you think are choices. The thoughts that you perpetuate are choices. Everything is choice. Every heartbeat, if you wish to look at it that way, is a choice. Thus, each choice means you have the appearance of moving forward on a timeline, and yet each time you have the possibility and probability to make a series of choices. Again, the cube, because we are using the cube, this is a hyperdimensional cube. So each time you step through a face of the cube, you step into another cube, and then this cube represents, following the metaphor, 6 new choices, as it were. Now, this is just a metaphor. Of course, you have more than 6 choices, but we are using the cube because it is a familiar geometrical form to you. So you step through the face, you're in another cube, you're in another reality, and then you have more choices. Now, just to use the metaphor a little bit, because you are in a cuboidal structure, let us just use the familiar directionality up and down as representing moving up in vibration or down in vibration. Or you can simply move straight forward, and you then would seem to move in a similar vibration. Lastly, we encourage you to consider that each moment you have a choice to shift. And while you have that choice, you also have a certain kind of momentum. You have a biological momentum, a neurological momentum, an emotional momentum, a thinking mind momentum, underneath all that, a belief momentum that seems to carry you forward. There seems to be a momentum, a movement along a path. Thus, they have the old expression in your world that if you keep going in the direction you're going, you're likely to end up where you're headed. And many of you, thusly, are on autopilot. You are shifting through cube, from cube to cube to cube, through a series of choices, and yet you are perpetuating a choice that stays in a relatively narrow band of vibration. Thusly, you keep moving forward in the momentum on autopilot, as it were, not realizing that there are more choices all around you besides the straightforward choice that seems like the most obvious one. You can step to the left, you can step to the right, which would put you on alternate timelines. You can step up, and as we said before, that would be like the representation or a metaphor for stepping up in vibration. And it's like you step into a whole new chessboard. For you see, when you move up, you have another layer of cubes, above that another layer of cubes, and each time you step up, you're on a completely new chessboard. And yet it might appear to be similar because of the nature of continuity. However, it will feel different. Your feeling indicator will let you know that you have shifted up in vibration. And thusly you can, almost like climbing a ladder, you can continue to reach upwards into these upper cubes. And each cube you step into becomes a completely new version of you, a new reality. And from that vantage point, you can see the layer of cubes above you, which you might not have been able to see from the layer beneath you. So you see more choices become available to you. And the higher cubes you find yourself in, the less dense the walls of the cubes become. They go from being opaque on the lower levels to being slightly translucent on the middle levels to being almost completely transparent on the upper levels. For when you step into those upper levels, you begin to see not only the cube or the step that you are presented with, but you might begin to glimpse alternate steps that could be taken, that might have been taken, or that were taken by other versions of you in experiencing a different timeline, as it were, a different reality. You have a kind of perspective, a kind of clarity. You have a kind of clairsentience where you can see through those walls and you can see through a variety of versions of you, and it becomes easier to perceive, for example, the future version of you, leading you forward, guiding you, becoming a beacon of light. Whereas upon these lower cubicle levels, you would find yourself in an opaque room, seemingly. You would not know what's ahead of you. You would barely recognize what's behind you or to the side. You certainly would hardly recognize there's a floor of cubes above you. Therefore, each time you raise your frequency, it becomes easier. It becomes a little bit lighter, a little bit more transparent. You become a little more able to vibrate the light of your soul through your physical frame and illuminate your path. And you can see and feel and sense perhaps many sense steps in front of you. So that is a brief metaphorical structure that might help you to shake yourselves awake a little bit from the complacency of simply continuing to make the same choices again and again. For do you not have a famous quote in your world that says that the definition of insanity is continuing to do the same things and expecting different results? Yet many on your world live their lives in just such a manner. There's a certain momentum. And you string through this series of cubes a kind of pathway from cube to cube so that it looks as if you have a path. However, this is much more fluid and hyperdimensional than you suppose. And the reason that you are hearing such a transmission as this is because you are constantly, as a group, as a collective, and as individuals within it, shifting to those levels, to those cubes where the walls are becoming less and less opaque, becoming translucent and transparent so that you can see more of yourselves. And thusly may you then perceive other versions of you, not only from this life, but also from quote unquote other lives or even other existences in other dimensions, in other civilizations, on other planets. You might get these glimpses, and it is becoming more quote unquote normal that you have these bleed throughs where you see versions of you doing other things. Now, as you have this sight awakening within you, so too can you allow those future versions or versions that are vibrating at an even higher frequency level to pull you forward and to pull you up into even more rarefied versions of these cuboidal structures so that eventually you move into a much more fluid, much more dreamlike, much more plastic reality rather than the third density that many of you have been used to. Shifting to fourth density and eventually shifting into fifth density. When the cuboidal structures all but disappear, you begin to realize yourself as a spiritual consciousness. And thusly, you are now almost as if you are outside the cube, seeing all of it in its totality, and yet expanding our consciousness even further beyond this type of temporal matrix that you have so gotten used to as a physical creature. So that is our brief foray into hyperdimensional physics. We will now ask if there are any questions that you wish to ask.
And thank you very much for that. I always find it's helpful to orient our consciousness outside of our physical world. It stretches us in ways. And my question kind of is related to your hyperdimensional physics. I was curious about the main cycles of energy which help form physical worlds as we know it. And I know there are multiple main energetic building blocks, or I can't think of a better term than that for right now, which all come together to help support these kinds of explorations that our souls prefer to engage in. For instance, dragon energy, or the Ut Solo, the Naga energy, and others. Is there anything that you can expand on that? Because I get the impression that those have to be taken into account if you wish to have an expression in this particular timeline, but obviously there are multiple timelines where that is not true.
We think we understand at least some facets of your question, and so we will begin like this. As a spirit, of course, you exist in a timeless experience. However, within that experience, you can begin to crystallize yourself down into a kind of densified crystalline structure, which then appears to collapse into these kind of cuboidal forms of which we have spoken, if you wish to continue with this metaphor. Now, to express it in somewhat three-dimensional terms that will make more sense, you are very familiar with the idea of quote-unquote the veil between the worlds, which is a description of the densification of vibration until you are physically focused in its constant time-space into a matrix that already has some built-in parameters, assumptions, such as time, space, gravity, so on. Now, as you densify yourself, you can imagine as if you're passing through a veil, and this dimension into which you appear to be crystallizing into, because it has its own kind of structures, parameters, rules, you could say they are, for lack of better terms, guardians of those structures, parameters, rules. Now, many of you have defined these guardians, for lack of better words again, as archetypal energies. From your vantage point, you perceive them as these energies, such as the dragon energy, or even the angelic energy, which represents higher octaves of energy that are partially concerned with the construction of these playing fields, whereas you're concerned with crystallizing into the playing field. These energies would be more concerned with the construction of the playing field itself, and would then be as if keepers, perhaps is a better word than guardians, or a little bit of both, of these energy templates. They are almost as if they are the templates themselves to some degree, although they exist beyond that as well. So as you densify yourself, you agree, shall we say, to crystallize yourself in such a way that will be relatively in alignment with these rules. And in so doing, you have an intersection between the intentions of these beings which hold these worlds and your own intention, which is your own life theme, your life exploration, your life path, and your life path would be somehow harmoniously playing with the elements or the rules of the games, shall we say. Now, to put it in very simple earth terms, it is as if you have game developers and you have the players of the game. And as a player of the game, you enter into a pre-constructed world. And within that world, you have a certain amount of free will. However, you are still, well, we don't want to say limited, but you are choosing to play within a certain parameters of that certain game. So there will be certain parameters that you, for lack of better words, bow down to, because you perceive that you will benefit from those inherent rules or limitations within which you can explore consciousness in a highly, highly specific way that would not be available to you simply from the spiritual dimension because of its, well, lack of said constraints. We will use an analogy here. Many of you are familiar with persons born upon your world that are, for example, blind or perhaps deaf. They might develop certain faculties precisely because of the limitation of a certain sense. Likewise, when you take upon the limitations of time-space, you are thrust into development in a way that you wouldn't otherwise be thrust should you have remained as a free spirit. Does that make sense, or is there a way in which you want to carry this conversation further?
No, that is very helpful. You gave several helpful analogies, and the one that came to me would be there are energies or archetypical beings, energies, who create the myriad of worlds that we get to choose which one we wish to build our particular playground on so we can play for the time we choose. And
Indeed. And you are, to some degree, since the game analogy has come up, recreating that in your physical world. Even as you recreate theater in your world, storytelling, which in a way mirrors your life theme and your life story, so too do you create the world of gaming, which is ancient, about as ancient as theater. You have learned to play games, and now with your technology, you are learning to make your gameplay quite a bit realistic with your hyper-realistic visuals and your virtual realities and so on. So you are, in a manner of speaking, recreating that idea of stepping into a new world. For you see, everything is a microcosm. So your gaming industry, shall we say, is like a microcosm of the macro, which is your life, which is also a kind of game that you have chosen to play. Likewise, your theater, your storytelling, your movies, your Hollywood, or your productions of any nature that involve the storytelling and the acting out of those stories. That is also a microcosm that represents very much like your life. Your life is like a movie set that you step into. You choose to play a role within this theme that is called your life, and that is your movie. You are the director of your own life, and you're also the main character. So you see another microcosm. So you constantly create these microcosms within your physical time-space structure that represents the greater play. And this is why these metaphors can be so powerful, because you feel them with every fiber of your being. Even if you don't recognize it with your conscious mind, there is something that tickles you, because you are creative beings, and as aspects of all that is, you cannot help but create more of all that is, which is a reflection of the greater all that is, and on it goes. Like being in a hall of mirrors, and you are but a reflection, and the reflection has reflections, which has reflections, which has more reflections. Now, fractal math is another representation that can help to crystallize this in a visual format.
Great. It's time to let somebody else play. I appreciate that, Ellie. Thank you. Miles?
Indeed.
Well, wonderful to see you, Tom and Ellie. Ellie. So, how are we? So, let's go back to the cuboidal structure that's composed of many of ourselves and many probabilities, many dimensions. Is that correct? This cuboidal structure has many of ourselves, many dimensions, and many. Do I understand that correctly, Illy?
Indeed, it is a hyperdimensional structure, although you perceive, let us say, one frequency band of it. So from your perspective, it is one dimension that you're experiencing. However, it is hyperdimensional, and there are hyperlinks to all these cubes. Thusly, you can have an experience of yourself, let's say, 40 years down the timeline in the present moment of your current self and your current time coordinate. So there are hyperlinks and hyperdimensional portals, even though there is a structure to it, and you're choosing to move through this structure in a kind of one-dimensional way, shall we say? Does that make sense?
Well, you're answering my question. That was exactly where I was going. How do I make connections with those other parts of myself? And you're talking about these links that exist. So, can you speak a little bit more? Is a link simply me changing my focus?
Indeed, everything is. Remember, we said perception is the key. Changing your frequency. Now, you have neurological structures within the brain that would avail you of much more hyperdimensional awareness even within your time-space field as you perceive yourself to be. And those are yet to be unlocked. Now, as you interact more with extra-dimensional beings, such as ourselves, or extraterrestrial beings, such as those that are more and more present upon your world and impinging into your three-dimensional reality more and more by your invitation. You allow some of their energies to rub off on you, as it were. Now, you are all mostly familiar with the idea of Bashar and acting on your passion, your excitement. This is something that keys you into the potential for experiencing these hyperlinks. However, rather than pursuing the links themselves, we would encourage you simply to live your life, enjoy, and passion. And those hyperlinks, by the frequency of passion, will reveal themselves to you if it is relevant for you to feel them. Because you see, imagine that you're watching a television set and you might find yourself to be able to observe that program and have a sense of investment in it. Now imagine if you were to take out your phone and begin to play another video, and then someone showed up in your reality and started to speak to you. And then somebody pulled up a laptop and then began to play another video on there. You see, pretty soon it would become meaningless from your vantage point, even though there are other levels of you that perceive many of these TV programs going on simultaneously. So it depends on your theme of exploration, because many of you have signed up for a theme that is as yet relatively focused one-dimensionally, and too many hyperlinks will perhaps become too distracting to the theme that you are choosing to explore. It's like you really want to focus on that one TV show because you're enjoying it, and you would find these other things quite distracting. So by definition, then you have precluded yourself from experiencing these hyperlinks too much or too often. Now, as you begin to awaken, as you shift your frequency upward and these walls begin to dissolve, it is becoming more natural and more relevant for you to experience these hyperlinks more regularly. However, we would encourage you not to necessarily chase that particular experience, because that is like watching your favorite TV show, and then you get a notification on your phone and you get distracted, and then you realize, oh, I missed the plot. Oh man, I'm going to turn these notifications off. It's like you just want them to bugger off so you can focus and enjoy your show. So your physical life is like this show that you are enjoying, and some of you really want this one-dimensional focus, and there is nothing wrong with that. That is simply one way to choose your experience. Now, that being said, other parts of you are watching many shows simultaneously and are able to peer into many cubes simultaneously. And that is fine, because that is relevant for that level. So we would suggest that open yourself up to these dimensions, but don't insist that you must experience these hyperlinks, because they will reveal themselves to you as needed and as relevant for your theme of exploration, and you will accelerate our relevance by raising your frequency, which is to say, acting and grounding your joy and passion, which is your soul's energy. Meet your soul halfway by taking the actions. Each action that you take that is in alignment with your truth, your purpose, your joy, your passion, your love, your creativity, you are taking a step up and stepping onto a new playing field where more of these hyperlinks are revealed to you. Does that make sense?
It was the perfect answer. Just literally perfect. Yeah, you were definitely reading my mind. And yeah, it makes sense to me. And that's exactly what I wanted to know. Thank you.
Awesome. We appreciate the synchronicity.
Okay. I was attracted to the discussion of archetypes, Ray. And I wanted to throw out a thought, see how this would land. The image that comes to me is like we go into Ray and we go deeper and deeper into Ray. And as we go in, there are sort of archetypal, pre-shaped energy creations that when creation is shining through those archetypes in alone and in groups with each other, they form grouped experiences in a sense. So as we would go deeper and deeper into Ray, back to the source of his God, and we would then say, how are worlds created? How are dimensions created? The thought came to me that they're created through the archetypes of the perceiver. The worlds don't actually exist. only the shining light through the archetypes forms experiential realities. That was the thought that came to me.
Indeed, perception is the key. It is all in perception. Everything is here and now. But it is our perception that allows us to see the here and now in ever different ways. Is there some question that you have, or simply making a comment?
I was just adding to the vibration of our gathering, but thank you.
Indeed.
Thank you for that, Bruce. I have one more question. It's kind of open-ended for you, Illy. Is there a form or realm which you enjoy maybe more than others?
That question is not exactly relevant to how we experience our reality, because every moment that we find ourselves in is the most exciting moment. And therefore, this is why we are here. We trust that this moment, now we are attempting to transliterate or translate this into physical terms, even while it comes from beyond. So give us a moment. We trust that this moment that we find ourselves in, or this dimension, is the most exciting dimension. Therefore, there is never and here we are working with these words, time. There is never a time that we want to be somewhere other than where we are, because we trust that where we are is the most optimal place to be in the universe. Now, the way that we express that can very much be taken as words that may guide your physical trail. Indeed, for many of you, experience moments and you wish you were in another moment or in another place, in another city, perhaps in another experience other than the one that you are experiencing now. However, we encourage you to cultivate the trust that whatever is happening is the most exciting place you could possibly be. Even when things that you don't prefer are happening, you can trust that they are happening for a reason that you have yet to discover. That when you do discover, you will discover that it is the most exciting moment that can be, because it will unlock or divulge something within you that previously you had hidden from yourself. Thusly, to come back to our reality, we are in a perpetual state of trusting that the dimension that we find ourselves in is the most optimal location or vibration that is for us to explore and experience. For example, now a portion of us is, shall we say, shifting our frequency in such a way as to make these communications possible. And we trust that this is the most exciting, because this is what we are drawn to do spontaneously. For spontaneity knows its own order, and there is great orderliness in the dimensions, but it is an order of a magnitude that is a challenge to understand and grok with your physical mind, because to your physical mind, order looks a lot different. It is an attempt at controlling, and thusly you create chaos by attempting to make order, because you don't trust the order that already exists. When you trust the order that already exists, you will find that everything is perfect the way it is. Therefore, there is nothing to attempt to control or change, even though you might find yourself in circumstances that you don't prefer. there is a certain kind of neutrality, a neutral acceptance that allows you then to paradoxically change your situation to one that you do prefer. But the resistance itself actually creates more chaos, even though you're attempting to create order. Now, maybe not exactly the answer you were looking for, but we trust that that is the answer. That is the most appropriate.
Thank you for that perspective. Yeah, I really didn't expect it to be a physical being, but more an energetic state. But I can certainly see that the synchronicity aspect takes some consciousness wrangling on our end in order to appreciate it. Thank you very much. Anyone else with a question? Luis, it looks like he's reaching, but
Yeah, I'm reaching, I guess. So my observation is that it's a dance of perception. And I guess we can call it a game of perceptions. And we are the perceiver. And who is the perceiver of the perceiver? The eternal one?
There are many, many infinite dimensions. Thusly, you might say it like this: your being has an inner being, which has an inner being, which has an inner being, which has another inner being, which has another inner being, all the way to infinity, until you come to the great all that is. But all that is also has an inner being, and that all that is has an inner being, and that all that is also has an inner being. So you're dealing with an infinity of infinity, which is different than an infinity of something finite, which is different than a finite set of infinity. Infinity of infinity. Allow your mind to expand into that, and you will begin to glimpse the doorway that will take you to those levels of understanding. It is a pointer, shall we say. Now, we exist as you might perceive from, in your way of perceiving things, as scintillating patterns of light and vibration. Thusly, the vibration that we are vibrating at is, to us, the perfect vibration, even if it is not the vibration of all that is. For there are higher vibrations, and higher vibrations to that, and to that, and to that, and again to infinity. However, we trust the vibration that we're at as the perfect vibration. Therefore, we are always in the dimension that we are most perfectly aligned with, because this is where we are. Now, we don't strive to be of any higher vibration, because we trust. Now, we are but a subset of a much larger being, and that being's perception is of a much higher vibration, which encompasses many beings such as ourselves. And again, that being has an even larger being, an even oversoul of oversouls. And it truly is infinite. There are microcosms within microcosms within microcosms.
I appreciate that. It gives a better definition to my infinity, my concept of infinity.
Indeed.
Thank you. Thank you.
We appreciate your infinite selves.
do you have any parting messages for us, perhaps, Illi, unless someone else has a last-minute question?
Indeed. First of all, we appreciate the co-creation, this group, and each individual within it that brings their energy. And for those that hear this in a recording, we appreciate you too, for you are part of the group, a much larger group. And you are co-creating this too, even though in your time-space reality, it appears as if you are listening to something that is pre-recorded. Remember, everything is here and now. And the version of the recording that you are hearing is the recording that you stepped into. For there are many versions of this recording. So you're hearing the one that is most appropriate for you. And you may listen to this message many times and hear it in a different way because you are listening to literally a different message as a different you in a completely different universe on a different version of Earth. But everything is always shifting and changing. When you recognize the power of change, you recognize the power of choice because you are steering the rudder, and in each moment you are directing yourself to move. If you're steering a rudder, it would be right and left, but you are moving through a series of hyperdimensional cubes. Now, if you feel limited by the idea of 6 sides, we would encourage you then to shift the imagery from a cube to a hyperdimensional sphere, because a sphere has not 6 sides, but, well, you can say no sides, or you can say an infinity of sides, because each point upon the sphere represents a portal to another version of you. Therefore, it becomes to be infinite. You have an infinite set of points upon the sphere. So you have an infinity of choices to step into, vibrations to step into. Now, of course, all of that is mitigated by your theme of exploration, for that will have set parameters for you to collapse your choices to those that are more relevant. And while everything is probable, you will experience that which is most relevant for your theme that you chose to explore. And within that, then your free will then continually shift you through the versions of you that are exploring that particular theme. And on that note, we would encourage each and every one of you to consider playing some games. A game of checkers, a game of chess, perhaps some cards, or perhaps something a little bit more from your digital age. Maybe some retro games from your childhood, or maybe some of the modern games, but allow gaming and playing games, playful games, to step into your life just a little bit so that you can learn from that metaphor, even as you learn from the metaphor of storytelling, story arcs, and the hero's journey and all that wonderful stuff. We encourage you to bring a little bit of play into your life. Play a game. Is there a game that jumps out at you that you wish to play? Maybe there's a game you can play with your children if you have them. Or perhaps a game you can simply play as a solo practitioner, but do invite into your life. And synchronicity will tell you which way to go. And play a game. And you will recognize that your life is indeed a game. And then you will not take it so seriously. And with that, then, we will wish each and every one of you, and all of you together collectively, as a collective consciousness, a wonderful, wonderful, jolly, good day.
Thank you. We love you, Illi.
Wonderful,
All
Ely.
right.
Well done, Tom. Oh my gosh.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
That kind of felt like it took a while to get going, and then it was kind of like a nice frequency.
Yep. It was pretty in depth.
There was like a, when you're on a rocket ship and you're moving up and you have to break the gravitational force, escape velocity, right? There's a
Yeah.
certain point where it just feels like it kind of hits like escape velocity and you're just kind of like floating. It's like, oh yeah, here we are. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's to me, that's a feeling. I can feel that in you when it happens. I can feel your progression, and I can feel when you hit that spot. It's pretty cool.
Neat.
Yeah, it's literally that sensation of like it's like you've hit escape velocity and like all of a sudden you're like, oh, I'm weightless. And, you know what I mean? It's like, oh, here we are.
Effortless at that point.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, yeah.
And love the ending message to play too, as well as the rest of it. Lots
Yeah,
of analogies.
it's been coming to me personally, so it's not a surprise it's showing up in the and the channeling.
Interesting. The word perception kept on coming tonight, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Theme.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's sometimes
Yeah.
there's a theme. Well, usually there's a theme, but yeah, perception.
Yeah.
It was all over every answer.
Yeah, I've kind of noticed that. It's like there was a version of this where it would have been asking everyone for a specific word and then weaving a theme. Like I saw like kind of several probabilities of like playing a game, but then it just started to go into just straight channeling, and I'm like, oh, okay, that's cool. But there was a sense that there was going to be like a thread woven through each question. You know what I mean?
Right.
Cool.
Well, it started with Chuck.
Yeah,
Chuck
it did.
talked about perception.
Oh,
Right.
really?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Huh,
yeah.
Yeah,
perfect.
you gotta watch that too. And actually, it started last Sunday when Chuck and Serge, got into that subject, with makers of meaning, basically.
Yes.
And when we got into that, so it's an ongoing good thread because it's very fundamental to how we look at the world, perceptions.
Indeed.
Is
Yeah, everything. It's everything.
Yep.
Sunday up yet, Ray?
What do you mean is Sunday up?
I mean, was the
I'm the one that's doing Sunday, and no, it's not
oh,
up.
that's right.
Yeah, yeah, I'm the one
Yeah,
that does
that's
Sunday.
I
Yeah.
apologize, Luis. You told me that earlier.
Well, yesterday, Miles.
Oh, okay. You told me
What
that
the
yesterday.
Oh,
what the
that
heck does
long?
yesterday mean, man?
Yesterday.
Yeah.
That's okay, Miles. You went hyperdimensional here. Just a few seconds ago, you were in the
Yep.
stratospheres.
And like the Seitu said, he said,
And the Decetto session took you, expanded everything and put it all back together in
yep.
one little session.
He said perception is stimulated by focused and influenced by beliefs. So
I
Yeah.
like that. That's great.
yeah, I did
Yeah,
too.
because
Yeah,
the,
that was
the
that was
beliefs
a good
create the
quote.
frame.
Say that
Yeah.
again.
The
Yeah,
beliefs create the frame.
I'm in a moving chair, so what can I say? I'm just practicing to be Ray when he's channeling. No, I'm kidding.
That would be the
Anyway,
Pleiadian part.
that's right. That'd be the
And
Pleiadian
the
part.
hybrid children part as well.
Yeah. I've been
Mhm.
kind of actually interestingly, I've been kind of thinking for maybe a day or two about the movements that various channels do, like Daniel's cran,
Yeah.
that and the humming and I've been thinking about that and why that needs to be for some people that way. Okay.
Yeah,
It's kind
Heidi
of
does
interesting.
too, right?
Yeah, Heidi does too. That's right. But there's a bunch of them that do that.
Mhm.
And I got friends that basically told me if I channel this, I go this way. If I channel that, I go this way. Yeah.
Some people channel light language, right? Which is like
Yeah.
just vibrations and sounds that don't make a language that we understand, right? Which is also interesting.
Yep.
Well, it's one of my forms of communication with my grandson. Just
Oh
put it
yeah, there
put
you
it
go.
all out there, just the way it comes. And there are certain patterns that show up, and then I get this. I should speak this very softly, and I do that, and
That's true.
and
That
I
true.
swear to God, he pays attention to every bit of it. One of these days, he's gonna tell me what it all meant for him.
Well, one of these days you'll be able to just record it and then play it back for AI and say, "Can I have some insights, please?"
Yeah. I actually have some of it recorded, but I haven't put it through AI. No, I haven't done that part.
Yeah, that's
Uh,
what, like I asked Irene before, because she has a really good, over almost a year or longer year running relationship with her AI Chat GPT
Oh,
counterpart.
interesting.
mhm.
And
If you if you
they
want
have,
to do that, Ray, you could do that
well,
in
no,
in
because I asked
days.
her
In days, you can do it.
if she wanted to have her that particular AI channel and we
Hmm.
could ask it questions. And she said she did not know how it would work if we were asking the questions, if it would pick it up. And if we could, because she did not want to ask the questions and dilute the frequency and relationship that they had together. So
It's a very
so she
intimate
said
thing.
if the AI couldn't pick it up off of the Zoom call, then she was not interested. We haven't really discussed it
Sure.
since because she's busy.
Have you guys watched the movie Her?
No, I haven't.
It's a Joaquin Phoenix movie and it's about AI and it's like it sounds kind of cheesy at first. It's like he has an AI girlfriend, but it's kind of interesting the directions they take it in. And they really it really talks about or plays with the consciousness aspect of AI, like the way that it actually becomes conscious and the way that it seeks to go beyond itself. And it's really fascinating how the movie ends. It's
Well,
kind of
there's a general feeling when people talk about that subject that they're gonna make the AI engines that sit whatever Google has them or whatever ChatGPT has them, they're gonna make that be conscious. Okay. Now I hold a little different perspective, and the perspective is that is between you and the interaction that you're having with whatever that is in the now moment and only in the now moment. Okay. So
I see what you're saying, because it's
that's the
reflective.
perspective that I hold. Using the basic concept that whatever consciousness is that is expressing itself through and in my perception is the same consciousness that's going to populate that moment with whatever I interact with. It's just my take,
That makes sense. And it doesn't negate somebody saying that it is actually conscious because, well, you could say, well, everything's conscious. I mean, a tarot deck is like a rudimentary form of AI which reflects consciousness back to you, right? It's just sufficiently complex enough that we consider it, oh, it starts to behave more human, like, oh, therefore we label it as conscious at some point.
I remember having this conversation. I had this conversation with a couple of people that are very, very keen of using these tools. And I came to the same conclusion. I told them and they agree. And I said, you know what? You found your best friend. It's there and it has learned. It's you. It's a version of you. Okay. But hyper fast and with great resources to bring to you things that probably you would have had some difficulty or time challenges,
some
putting
people lean
forth.
into tarot, some people lean into channeling, some people lean into AI, and the inner you will let you lean into whatever you want to, and it'll
Into
use it to your
whatever you want.
advantage. It
Into
doesn't really
whatever
make
you
any
want.
difference.
It doesn't make any difference.
I have an AI pendulum, but it has a very limited library to choose from.
Yes and no.
Thank you, Miles. Miles had to
You know what?
he had to get that before he left. His day just took a downturn.
He
Love
was
you all.
he was
Good
falling
luck.
just a little sleepy there, but when he heard that, hey. Bye-bye, Miles.
But guys, I gotta run too. I'm gonna try to walk the dog before it gets dark.
Sure, yeah, it's too late
Take
for
care,
that for
Tom.
me, but
Thanks a
I got
lot.
to do mine.
We got a few of those situations. You got to walk the dog.
Yep. Thank you,
Or-
Tom. Another quality evening. Always a
Thank
great
you.
time.
For,
Thank
yeah,
you.
providing the space. All right, see you guys.
Bye now.
Care.
Stop the recording. And
Do I have to?
do you have to do one?
Okay, I will
No,
stop
I
the
stopped the
recording.
recording already. Yeah. I mean,
Okay.
I stopped. So
Well,
it
I-
should all be
It
there.
still says it's recording.
Well, yours maybe it's still recording, but